rivers have cut deep gorges, a rugged area still largely as nature created it. And what better place for the Walkabouters to spend the 4 days? On arrival, first chore is to unpack and erect tents. Most of the Walkabouters are seasoned campers and come to the assistance of new chums. Perlo ruefully surveys what is to be home for the next 4 days, while son Peter, determined to be independent, struggles with the problem of getting his tent up. The old warriors arrived early and are already well set up. Wallace assured me he was not going to eat these all at once. Chores completed and time now to relax around the campfire for a barbecue tea. Saturday morning, and all that can pile into the back of Jack Myers' truck for ferrying to the other end of the gorge for a full day walk. Like sheep to the slaughter, poor blighters, they didn't know what an arduous day lay ahead. On the way, and easy going at first along the Mooneyong Creek, with little more hazard than negotiating a barbed wire fence or the danger of wet feet in fording the creek. Along the creek Indian file until we reached the Werribee River at the entrance to the gorge. A most interesting area geologically, and Stan Rowe, our geologist, gives us a short talk on the area, whilst the walkers are pleased to take a short break. Some river crossings were a bit difficult. This one, a fallen tree, was a bit tricky, but we all made it successfully. With Jack Myers in the lead, it is not the gently descending track through the gorge we follow. Oh no, it's up and over the top of the highest peak. A real climb, but well worth the effort. Heavy slogging with the top never appearing any closer, but only a taste of that to follow. A rocky spur and a wonderful view. No need to ask if anybody wants a rest. Way down, the gorge winds its sinuous way between the steeply folded hills, whilst down the valley rises the rich grass-covered slopes of the island, once capped by great lava flows. What goes up must come down, and such a long way down, scrambling down rocky faces and sliding with the loose rubble, down the steep paths skirting the rocky outcrops, whilst endeavouring to avoid the swishing branches of the dense undergrowth. It's better not to stand on an ant's nest whilst admiring the view. This Betty M's found to her cost. We saw numerous lizards, but most quickly scampered into the rocks and scrub. This dragon, however, was quite docile and obliging. It was pleasant down in the gorge along the river, but we were soon faced with an almost sheer vertical climb out of the gorge, with a long, steep trudge up the mountainside heading for Picnic Point. However, there were compensations, for frequent rest stops gave us ample opportunity to admire the view along the valley and down into the ever-receding gorge. Eventually, Picnic Point, and it's a very tired and weary group to sink down on the mossy turf or a convenient log for a lunch break. From here, some elected to take the shorter direct route back to camp, but the more intrepid, guided by Jack Myers, headed directly down the steep, rugged track into the gorge to wend our way back to camp along the river. Across the ravine lies Falcon's Lookout, while deep down below is Pyramid Rock and the twisting rocky course of the Werribee River, which over eons of time has cut this great chasm through the ranges. Narrow paths lead along the ledges hugging the moss-covered rocky faces, with splashes of colour added by the wildflowers. Lower into the gorge now, with the precipitous sides of the ravine towering above. Down on the river, a group of scouts are establishing camp. Here the works of nature have only been molested by time, where great blocks of tumbled rock lay scattered beneath the towering precipitous sides of the ravine, where the Ordovician sandstones have been grotesquely folded and rent by gigantic fault plains, and fissures intruded by molten rock thrust from below, the river gorge being widened and deepened by the grinding and tearing of gigantic glaciers. Down at the river, the stream tumbles along its rocky course, interspersed with picturesque broad quiet pools. Quiet now, but the river can be a raging torrent in flood, and steep precipitous cliffs have been cut into the rock faces by swirling water sweeping around the bends, whilst on the inside of the curves there are expanses of sand and water-worn pebbles. 1920, a water race was laboriously cut along the north face of the gorge to bring water from the upper reaches into the Bacchus Marsh for irrigation. This race has long fallen into disuse, but the well-graded foot track back to camp along the race was most welcome to some very weary walkers. Back at camp, first thought is to satisfy the inner man, and Perla is soon on the job. About the camp, the colourful flowers of the Scotch thistle and others catch the eye. The bristly burrs of the teasel plant are both attractive and useful. They were once used in the wool industry in the teasing of wool. Wood for the campfire is collected a la Kenilworth style on the front of Nancy's Land Rover. 3 eggs for Sunday breakfast. Of course, it's Wallabouters, but there is plenty more to go with them. We propose a hike into the Leatherdirt Gorge today, and there appears a great deal of inertia about the camp when it's time to get moving. For the more intrepid who chose the full day walk, it was firstly over the gate and a long trudge in the hot sun up the State Rivers Road to the top of the spur. After yesterday's marathon, however, many chickened out and drove to the fords for a short walk into the entrance of the gorge only. There is plenty of interest along the road with the wildflowers in bloom, good views of the mountains, and much of interest to be learned from Stan and Jack on the geology of the area, particularly in the new road cuttings. Finally, we reached the top of the spur and decided it's a good place for lunch, while Jack Myers gallops off along the road to catch up with a few who went ahead and missed the track. Down the steep track now through the dense bush, single file, with each person responsible for the one immediately behind. A break in the line and a shout ahead halts the column, whilst the stragglers catch up. It is no place to lose someone here. There is plenty of slipping and sliding and rolling onto slodge stones on the steep track, and the tree trunks are mighty handy to hold on to. Jack told us we were only the third group ever to descend this spur into the gorge. There was no time lost on gaining the river at the bottom of the gorge in removing boots and socks to bathe hot, tired and aching feet in the cool water. A frog reckoned a foot was as good a place as any to perch. the steep rock faces rise abruptly from the tumbling stream, contorted and folded. Occasionally, dikes of hard, resistant rock bar the way, damming the river into deep pools. Here the river sweeps around the bend in the gorge, cutting deeply into the rock face, whilst opposite is a gently sloping broad beach of water-worn rocks and sand. There is little chance of scaling the steep rock face, so it must be bypassed by fording the river and recrossing further down. A well-worn walking track now leads back down the gorge, overlooking the rock-strewn course of the river. A popular walk for weekend visitors from the road fording the river downstream. Beds of tillite are evident where great glaciers have dumped their carried burdens, whilst the larger rocks and cliff faces are striated and scarred as a result of the overriding ice. Here the narrow track hugs the perpendicular face of the Great Wellesley Fault Plain, where the smooth face of the rock still bears striations as evidence of gigantic slip which took place through the area, allowing the regeneration of the Lerderderg and the Werribee rivers, leading to the formation of these great gorges. The river slackens and widens into broad pools, reflecting the sandstone bluff as we near the end of the gorge. There is road access to the river at the mouth of the gorge, where the river may be forded, a scenic spot and a favourite picnic place for day visitors. At Blackwood nearby is a picturesque pottery run by an enterprising young couple. An old-world atmosphere is created on the ground floor, a corner nook with a large open fireplace and racks of pottery ware displayed for sale. In the workshop, the deft hand of the potters puts the finishing touches on a piece of pottery, whilst about on the shelves are pieces of raw pottery maturing prior to firing in the kiln. It is fascinating to watch the potter, starting with a shapeless and almost worthless blob of clay, create an article of use and beauty, so quickly and deftly by manipulation of the pliable mass in her artistic fingers. The creative work does not stop here, however, as glaze must be added and the article fired, when the plastic mass of the clay is transformed by physical and chemical changes to the hard, durable pottery, whilst the glaze vitrifies and imparts the beautiful lustre and colour to the finished article. From the clay these works of art are born, which may endure forever, for large quantities of pottery from ancient civilizations have been found unscathed by thousands of years of burial and immersion. Another of the few places where the road access to the Letterdurg River on its course through the steeply folded and rugged hills is at O'Brien's Crossing, where a low wooden bridge crosses the stream. A picnic place and barbecues have been established here, and an idyllic place for lunch. Most have come well prepared for a good lunch, and soon the barbecues are alight, and a final polish up for good measure, then on with the steaks, which are soon sizzling. The soporific effect of a good lunch seems too much for Jim Weeks, as he stretches out under a shady tree, quite oblivious to the activity around him. Water cascades over the low weir built across the river, damming the stream into shallow pools for swimming during the summer. It is proposed that we drive out to Hogan's Track this afternoon, and Jack and Stan confer on the proposed route. It is a pretty rough track out to Hogan's Lookout, with plenty of very steep gradients, but we all make it. The lookout overlooks a wide, rugged valley, through which flows the Letterdurg River, and is flanked by Mount Blackwood. It is spring, and along the track wildflowers in numerous variety bloom in profusion. The drive along Hogan's Track, though rough and steep, was considered worthwhile even for the wildflowers alone. Back at the campsite at the Werribee Gorge, it is near time to pack up and leave for home. Peter has a few practice runs along the river in his kayak. Wally rummages around in the remnants of the past few days, wondering where he is going to stow it all. And Fred brings to toast that our next expedition will be as successful as this one.